Gentlelady, Mr. Rokita.
Good to see you again.
I thank the chairman. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
I feel I can call you Tom because we know each
Absolutely.
other from prior work. We both Rodell Fellows, and for the record, you know, the purpose of that program is to bring people from all sides, different sides of the aisle, who are very strong in their preferred ideologies and introduce them to each other. We studied the great texts and such that we can get in travel and such that we can get in a situation like this and actually come to some solutions for the country. So let's test that. I have an idea. I think that regardless of a union contract, and we can argue back and forth about the social value of a union contract, and that's not the point, but regardless of the union contract, if an employer of a union employee wants to give that employee a raise, that employer should be able to do that. If we're interested in the worker, if we're interested in those 4 pillars that you talked about at the beginning of your testimony, this seems like a reasonable idea to me. Why be beholden to a union contract if an employer wants to give an individual employee a raise? Could you support an idea like that?
Well, when you look at the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median wage of a person of a union member is $200 more than the median wage of a non-union member, and that actually doesn't include benefits. The benefit package.
I'm not talking about union versus non-union. I'm talking about in a union shop. If a union employer wants to give an individual union employee a raise, can't they do that?
Well, again, I think the answer is, and the reason I gave that data is they have been, and as a result, the union.
The scenario is one union employee, not the whole union shop, a raise.
Well, again,
Good or bad?
I think whatever the agreement is going to govern the terms of how they move forward. And again, I look at that Bureau of Labor Statistics data, and I think it's worked well for union members who, again, have a median income of $200 more than non-union members doing similar work.
But again, I mean, we can go round and round and eat up my 5 minutes, and I hope you would give me more respect than that. The idea of giving one union employee a raise is good, right?
Well, again, I think you want to give people a raise.
Speaking of union contracts, is it true, we talked about minimum wage here a little bit, isn't it true that a lot of union contracts, and maybe you know the percentage, are keyed to the minimum wage rate, such that if we raised the minimum wage and made it a national law, federal law, even though you're supposed to be the unbiased umpire of union contracts and disagreements therewith, wouldn't this automatically bump up the pay under a lot of union contracts?
Well, as I understand the data, you increase the minimum wage, and there are something, depending on what study you look at, roughly 15 to 19 million people who are directly affected. And then there are another category of people, 8 to 10 million people, who are affected, and they're affected because their wage is slightly above the minimum wage, and employers will react to that.
Do you know the percentage of union contracts that are keyed to the minimum wage?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Silica dust, the permissible exposure limit. Do you know what percentage of American businesses, employers are in compliance with the current limits?
I don't have a precise answer to that question. I'm sure our OSHA folks can work with you to answer any questions you might have.
60 to 70% is what I think it is based on what I've read. Does that surprise you?
I don't know what the answer is, so I don't want to guess.
Let's assume it's 60 to 70%. Now, we can go 2 ways from there. We could either use the resources in your budget, and I'm on the budget committee, I've seen your resource, and by the way, I could build the pyramids with your budget, even under a union contract. Now, if the goal is workplace safety, why wouldn't we use those resources to get more in compliance, get that 70%, which is a decent number, up to 90, 95, or whatever percent? Why go and get a whole new set of regulations that's actually going to reduce the compliance rate when you have a limited resource in terms of your budget?
Well, actually, if you look at the work, it's not an either-or situation. The work that OSHA has been doing in the compliance setting has been significant. They have many tools in their arsenal, including prevention. In the grain silo context, they've been doing a lot of preventive work so that people aren't going to funerals. In terms of your question of, I don't know if it's 30, 40%, 70%, but I will say this:
Assume it's
if my daughter, if I knew that my daughter had a 30 or 40% chance of going into a workplace and having that exposure kill her, I wouldn't want her to be in that
Yes,
workplace.
agreed. So
The
why not work
gentleman's
to
time
raise
has
that
expired.
percentage?
Mr. Sablon.